not on bread alone, but perhaps with bread and humility. A few summers ago, I was able to craft all 4 of my July sermons based on the book of the week. This year, I only had a chance to read 1 book this month. Maybe I played too much golf. The book that I read is the nonfiction book Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, written in 2014 by Yuval Noah Harari. Harari is 45 and teaches history and philosophy at Hebrew University. The book aims to objectively look and present at the gamut of human history for the last 200,000 years. And obviously, though, focuses mostly on the last 10,000 years. The main lesson of the book that I got is that our history is simultaneously good and bad, depending on your perspective. And the idea is we cannot undo history, but we can learn from it and know that every decision we make has many, many complex and intertwined consequences, and many of them are unpredictable. We therefore need to be humble about our place in the earth and in the universe, and really more closely in our communities and our homes. For 190,000 years, Homo sapiens were hunters and gatherers. The majority of them traveled a maximum 100 miles from their birth. They lived in the savannas of Africa. They knew the terrain inside and out. They were jacks of all trades, eating a balanced diet. They had plenty of time to play with each other, to gossip in whatever little language that they had. And in the ecosystem, Homo sapiens were equal to the apes, the giraffes, and many other of the large animals. That is to say that all things considered, they lived quite a complex life, just not as complex as the humans of the last 10,000 years. There was a small population because there wasn't enough food for population growth. And certainly there was no mastery over a certain thing. You had to know how to make clothes, how to find which mushrooms were edible, and perhaps how to choose a berry and give it to someone else when they were sick. There was symbiosis present all over the ecosystem. So what happened 10,000 years ago? They call it the agricultural revolution. And as Harari puts it, humans made a Faustian bargain with the DNA of wheat, barley, olives, chickens, goat, and sheep. And we can add, even from this week's Torah portion, figs and grapes, dates and pomegranates. Why was it a Faustian bargain? Because it produced a surplus, but we had to spend more time producing this surplus, the sweat of our brow, to produce it. And the surplus was not always guaranteed. But when it came, it allowed for population to balloon and to grow, and allowed people to spend more time and energy thinking about the universe and tinkering with it. So for the next 10,000 years, humanity would literally take over the world. We would spread to every corner of the world. Is that a great thing or a bad thing? Well, if you support the thousands of species that eventually became extinct, such as the woolly mammoth, or the other human species, our brothers and sisters, the Neanderthals, then perhaps you were not so in favor of the advancement of humankind in the last 10,000 years. It really depends on your perspective. Lots of tough questions, even tougher answers. We cannot undo history, but we can certainly learn from it. What is Sapiens' Jewish messages? Well, as you can tell from the name, Harari is Israeli and Jewish, but he doesn't even mention it once in the book. But as a rabbi, I can find Jewish messages in the book. Judaism is the product of this advancement of humankind and hegemony in the world. As humans produced more food and cultures grew, we needed stories, we needed laws to bind us together. So the Torah makes us Am Yisrael. We all left Egypt. We all stood at Sinai. We are all the children of Abraham and Sarah. That is our myth that brings us together. And it has been quite a successful myth because he describes even later in the book how Holland is able to literally overtake the Spanish Empire in terms of commercial strength. Why? Because of their little gritty merchant network all over the world. Where was this merchant network from? Many of them were Jews who had fled Spain to all over different parts of the world. And so when a Jew came from Holland or from Turkey or from Venice on a boat and they met a merchant, they were able to speak the same language to each other, to trust one another. That's the important piece of religion. Judaism and most religions are also a beautiful toolbox for the inner life. We say in the Torah blessing, Natam betochenu, God plants the Torah in our lives. We have emotions. We have questions about life and the universe, and the Torah teaches us that. However, Harari teaches us the animals have strong emotions too. They just don't have a verbal way to communicate them. Does this cheapen Judaism or humanity as a whole as the masters of the earth? Harari doesn't answer these questions, but he challenges us to live with humility, to know that history is not bad or good. Religion has caused much death and hatred in this world, but it has also brought much solace and much goodness. We're not going back as hunters and gatherers. Animal husbandry, industrial agriculture is here to stay. Judaism and other religions still have great value. We just need to be humble. We can look at the 7 species as the bane of human existence. They literally took us over, Harari says. Wheat wanted to spread its DNA and made us its slaves. But the Kabbalah teaches us some beautiful lessons about the 7 species, especially the staples, wheat and barley. Wheat is chesed, they teach, kindness. Barley is gvura, restraint, and I would even call humility to have that restraint. This Torah portion, Parshat Ekev, challenge us to go beyond toil for our sustenance. Though, yes, we do the right things, bread and rain will come. Humanity cannot live on bread alone. For us Jews, the Torah is our spiritual sustenance that will help us be better as individuals and better species for this community. We can live on bread and humility. And let us say, Amen.